problem is integrity, not affordability. So we've made a bit of a last minute change in this week's YouTube upload because I'm talking about a different topic to what I expected to be, which is the affordability checks that have been put forward by the Betting and Gaming Council and the problems and potential solutions around that. Now, for anyone who's interested in sports betting whatsoever, whether it's horse racing, football, or any other sport, this is a very important topic. And if you want to have your say and get something done about this, then you've only got until the 9th of February to submit via a link, which we'll put in the description down below, to the Gambling Commission. Now, I'm going to talk about the actual problem, a couple of the proposed solutions, how I think that they're very wrong, why I think they're flawed, and how I think we could do better in solving that. Because as far as I'm concerned, myself included, whether you're a software provider, whether you're a gambling company, a gaming company, or even just a customer, it's important that we have an open debate about this, which is fair on both sides, and look at the best way to go forward, because the current solutions being put forward is not the best solution. I'm sure of it. So the problem is obviously that the harm and social consequences around problem gambling, some of the things that happen, the money that's lost, the very sad individual cases where people's lives are affected and their families are affected. Now, nobody wants that, I think it's fair to say, on a human level. The main thing at the core of this recent review, coming from the various bodies, Betting and Gaming Council, Gambling Commission, is affordability checks. Now, there are already some affordability checks in place for people who use sports betting online and casinos and gaming, more importantly. But there is a lot of problems around this, particularly when it comes to sports betting. So as the Racing Post has said this week, and a lot of people have sort of reinforced this, confirmed this, some people have bit back against it, and I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not specifically pro Racing Post. I do think they are a bit of a mouthpiece for the bookies a lot of the time, and I don't particularly like that, but I do agree with a lot of the points within that article too. But basically, what is being proposed is affordability checks on anybody who loses as little as £100 in a month on betting. So if you spend more than £4 a day on having a little flutter, then it's likely you're going to be asked for unredacted bank statements, various other pieces of personal information about your financial situation, so that the betting company can decide if you can afford to carry on with that particular behaviour as suggested and enforced by the regulator. So my opinion is, and I've got a few points here to go through, I think they're very important, is there's no dispute that there needs to be social-wide responsibility for some of the things that are happening, because some firms in the past, and I'm sure now too, target VIP customers, target vulnerable people, and try to extract more and more money from them, which isn't obviously good. But I think the way this is being approached and the suggestions being put forward around affordability are just totally wrong. So, for example, it's highly likely, in my personal opinion, that the betting firms, what they're actually going to do with this is they're going to use this to their advantage. So they are then going to be able to have more data on a person, on an individual level. They'll see their actual betting activity, and they will target the wealthier person all the way up until the point where it's considered a problem under social responsibility, which, that doesn't eradicate the problem. That doesn't take away social harm or problem gambling or the problem. It just means it's a wealthy person with a problem, and they're taking everything off of them except that final bit which qualifies them as a problem, because that's how corporations behave. Obviously, there will be some vulnerable people that will benefit from that possibly, because they won't be betting more than they can afford to bet, but there's a whole load of problems that follow with that too. So I fail to see how affordability checks are actually linked to identifying problem behaviour, because you can have a problem whether you're rich, you can have a problem whether you're poor, whether you can afford it or not, it's still a problem. It doesn't solve the issue at hand. So sending unredacted bank statements with all your personal information is counterproductive to this situation. Not only is it your own personal information that you might not want to share with a corporate company once you're already involved with them, having already placed some bets, and we'll come on to things like variance being played out in a second. But the problem here, I think, and I've said it so many times before, is industry-wide. It's not one specific operator, it's industry-wide. The problem is integrity, not affordability. So on seeing this suggestion about affordability, a few questions that popped up from me personally, and also a couple on Twitter. How often is this going to be updated? Because your personal situation can change very quickly. We've seen it with coronavirus this year. Are there going to be affordability checks on, just losing £100 in a month? Is it going to be monthly? Is it going to be weekly? When's it going to be reviews? Is it going to be daily? All this red tape that's going to be involved with it, all these submissions, the time involved with that, the costs and administration with dealing with it. Who's paying for all of that? Because I'm sure the company's not going to be taking a hit. It's just going to be passed on back onto the customer, which, at the end of the day, that's the ones that they're restricting. So what constitutes affordability? Now, there's obviously plenty of checks out there if you're getting a mortgage and something like that. But when it comes to betting, what is it? Is it gross affordability? Is it net affordability? Is it to do with your joint family household income? Is it disposable income? What's considered to be disposable income? Can you manipulate the disposable income figures? What are the offsets for losses? So, for example, plenty of people that follow this channel, myself included, I've done it in the past. What if you're doing, say, for example, something like arbitrage? Because that is currently an existing problem, which I think a lot of these sort of suits and MPs and kind of like scientific bodies and whatnot aren't really taken into consideration here. It's being used in the wrong way. If I'm betting with, say, Bet365 or Betfred or another very large firm, and I lose a bet, but I laid that bet off on a betting exchange, be it Betfair, Markets, Matchbook, whatever, because I really don't care about the individual entities here. But if I lose with one and gain with another, then the losing company may ask me for affordability. Am I then going to send them proof that I actually arbed that bet between the two different platforms and didn't actually lose anything? Because if I do that, at that point, the company's going to ban me from using them. They're not going to like that because, it's not conducive to their bottom line profit. So that is a massive problem. Also, hypothetically speaking, what if you've got a company owner who, say for example, is worth £10 million and he's, at what point is it affordable? Does that mean he can burn £9.5 million? Obviously, he's still got 500k to his name, so that's not technically a problem under affordability because he can afford it. Although it will affect all of the people around him, his company, his family potentially, the people that work for him. That's still harmful. So, at what level and how deep are they going with this? And the deeper they go, the more complex it becomes, and harder it becomes to enforce, and the more it is open to manipulation. So also things like the National Lottery. So people use the National Lottery online and maybe spend 20, 25 quid a week on lottery tickets. Do they need to submit affordability? You put all of these together though, and there is one common thing, and that is the betting provider, be it the National Lottery or a bookmaker or whatever, are in charge of making the decision, which is where the problem comes, which is what I said at the beginning there. It's about integrity, not affordability. Because we've already seen in the past various companies that have helped people sort of structure the situation so they can get around the affordability, so they can become a VIP and get the tickets to the races and burn a large amount of their excess cash. So also, I think that really, if any kind of regulator is viewing this, or anybody who puts something forward, maybe if you fill out the survey and the link in the description down below, then think about some of the things that the regulator and the people that are making these decisions, the MPs, need to understand. So in gambling, for example, as somebody who operates in the industry, done a lot of gambling all the time, then I understand variance. So there's a variance of a situation happening all the time. If you're betting, say for example, horses at a 10 to 1 or above, then there's going to be a large amount of variance in your results. So if you're placing £20 on a bet, it's highly likely, and even if you're betting at value, it's highly likely that, on a 10 to 1 shot, you're going to have to place 10 bets before you see a winner, which puts you well over affordability, therefore restricting you in terms of allowing the variance to play out. So in a way, affordability checks, at the very least, they will stall people from winning, and at the very worst, they will stop people from winning. So they actually make it even harder to win at sports betting. So that's actually a problem. VIP schemes and casinos, I think this is the main thing here. There needs to be a difference and differentiation between the two, because a casino, casino games, roulette, stuff like that, you have a minuscule amount of chance of winning, okay, over the longer term in comparison to sports betting, where you can calculate probability through skill and stuff like that, and they're totally different. But at the moment, they're coming under one blanket answer, which is just not right. Also, from a tax perspective, the Times released their highest taxpayers list just this week. And number 1 on there was the Coates family of Bet365. Number 3 was the Dunn brothers with Betfred. Now, obviously, that shows that they're doing very well. They're some of the largest operators in the entire industry. But do you think that maybe enforcing these affordability checks, which are essentially going to destroy the whole industry, the whole sports betting industry, is going to make them reconsider how they file their tax and the way they structure their companies? That could be something to think about too. So I think the other thing aside from this to remember is it's not just the Bet365s of this world, it's not just the Triple Eight casinos of this world that are going to be hit by potential affordability checks like this. It's going to be everybody that surrounds the industry that is reliant on all of these companies and the way everything functions. So, you know, followers of this channel will know software providers, for example, they don't provide betting odds, they don't provide the ability to place a bet, but you know, your Bet Angels, your Geeks Toys, your Grosses, they're all going to be hit by this extremely hard. People like myself, obviously you've got the news sites, the information providers, you've got the Racing Post, you've got hospitality industry around the sports, all the catering, all that kind of stuff. Everybody, TV channels, the whole lot are going to be hit hard by this rather draconian measure of introducing affordability because of some individuals which do suffer a genuine problem. So, okay, that's enough about the problem. What are the potential solutions here? Now, I think, as I've said already several times, it's about enforcing the integrity on these companies that are exploiting these people rather than doing a blanket response and making it a problem for everybody else. So we can't make those individuals that clearly do have a problem, which is very sad, change their behaviour because, you know, it is an illness on one level or another. Bookies need to be responsible, but that actually means making them responsible. And I think the best way that I can think of personally of doing this is to have an independent body or solution that collects the data and information and holds the data and information on a per player basis, and then that independent body is responsible for identifying if somebody is potentially a problem gambler, and that could be through some affordability checks too. But the difference would be they hold the information independently, not Bet365, not Betfred, not Betfair, not Ladbrokes, and so they get a yes/no answer whether this person has some kind of problem gambling or maybe even a score assigned to that, but not putting the provider or the fox in charge of the hen house, if you like. Okay, and also I think that it would be important for said individuals, if they were to deal with a third-party body like that collected such information and verified people as responsible or irresponsible, then it would be important that when you open a new account, if you are historically down as somebody who has some kind of limitation because you have a gambling disorder, then you are told on day one of opening that account, or you are told on the beginning of the month of using that account, that you are going to be restricted in one way or another. Not restricting somebody once they're already waist deep in letting that variance play out and spend some money, and then telling them you're at a potential loss and you can't carry on with your activity, which could potentially bring you in line with probability. Also, algorithmic work. Now this is a big one, and I know this is a little bit tricky, but a lot of these firms, Bet365 in particular, even says in their own company statements online, focus on using algorithmic work to identify the player types so that, you know, the business can become more profitable. So, you know, in layman's terms, what they're saying is they're identifying the people that spend lots of money and then they're going to target them more, which is exactly what these affordability checks are going to allow them to do. Adversely, on the other hand, and if you've seen other videos on this YouTube channel, you'll know people like me turn up, open an account with Bet365, half a day, you're restricted and told that you can no longer bet with them, or restricted to placing, you know, a pound or a couple of pound bet. So this algorithmic work, in one way or another, should be able to identify problem gamblers. Now, I know that can be a lot harder because a lot of gamblers out there online probably exhibit similar traits to problem gamblers. But that's certainly something that should be looked at and taken more seriously and enforced, rather than leaving them to make, you know, these kind of decisions. Also, another thought to that is also limiting the amount of data that a bookie collects on a person, because this targeting of vulnerable people comes from data collection. So why not restrict the amount of data that they can possibly collect? Or, like I say, make a third party deal with the data collection, which then just gives yes/no answers to the different bookmakers. And then finally, come on, these fines need to be enforced, and they need to be stricter and heavier on the offenders, especially the repeat offenders for these firms. Not putting, the fox in charge of the hen house, GVC that owns Ladbrokes, BetDAC, various other firms, not putting them in charge of deciding what social responsibility is, because currently they're clearly falling short on their own social responsibility. Now, that's just a few of my own personal thoughts and opinions. I think it's very important that everyone watching this fills out that survey that we'll put a link in the description down below for the Gambling Commission. But also, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about this situation and how it can be rectified down below. I'm keen to see some of the other things that maybe people will come up with in terms of solutions. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.